Oh wow, this is actually pretty uncomfortable. I think that's good. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's Manny here with another rather unusual video today. We're gonna talk about fasting again. A lot of people do not really appreciate the fasting content. You know, they say, hey Manny, you shouldn't fast, you're already lean, why do you even do that, why do you promote that? Others though say, hey man, that's interesting, sounds good, sounds like a healthy practice. Could you make a little bit of a video, you know, for beginners who do not have any experience with that, who want to get into that, you know, break the fear of fasting, use this very effective and very ancient health tool for all kinds of stuff, and it's really useful, I can tell you that, and it is free. Use it for all kinds of awesome stuff. So that's basically the purpose of this video. I want to go over a couple of points. First of all, the fear of fasting. I want to reduce your fear of fasting. Secondly, I want to talk about the motivation aspect. Why do you actually want to fast? What's your motivation behind it? And do you have actually a chance to achieve the goals that you've set yourself with fasting? Because fasting can do a lot of things, but it's not an all cure, you know. It's not the magical thing that's gonna cure everything or gonna make you a superhero or anything like that. And then I want to talk a little bit about how to start actually with fasting. You know, what's your first fast gonna look like? What should it look like? You know, to you know, break the fear, break the ice, so to say, when it comes to fasting. So first of all, fear of fasting. Usually there's a couple of points that people bring up here, and the three main ones are: first of all, will fasting cause muscle loss? No, because a very short answer, no. Let's try to view it logically. If an animal in the wild needs to starve, as you know, a little bit about my background. I studied biology. That's why I have a very naturalistic view. You know, I have a very naturalistic viewpoint, and I always question the logic behind a certain metabolic effect, or how this could affect your health, and how this could affect your metabolism and all that kind of stuff. So I always question the logic first, okay? Using common sense basically. Now, would it make sense for an animal that is forced to starve in the wild, you know, has to go around, look for food, it's starving, okay? Would it make sense to live off his fat reserves, or would it make sense to live off his protein reserves in the form of muscles? Now, of course, muscles is active tissue, okay? It's gonna help the animal to get around. It's gonna help the animal to finally, eventually find food again and help it to survive. Fat, on the other hand, is nothing but an energy resource. Not only energy, by the way, it's also containing a lot of minerals and a lot of vitamins. So it's gonna basically help the animal to, you know, to get fuel for this time of starvation, to be eventually able to find food again. So it makes a lot more sense for a starving animal to live off its fat reserves. And this is just the common sense aspect of it. If we're going into the scientific aspect of it, then we can see that when we fast, we're dropping our insulin really, really low, basically to the rock bottom, where it, you know, the lowest it can be. And in this mode, since your body is using insulin as kind of an orientation whether it should be in fat releasing or fat storing mode, when insulin is rock bottom, your body is actually getting into fat releasing mode. You know, it's gonna break down fat and using it for energy. It's gonna get into fasting forced ketosis. So that's the scientific aspect. You know, we're gonna crank our insulin down and thereby get our fat burning up, and this is actually a very muscle sparing process. As we know, we need also a little bit of sugar in our blood to run our brain and other tissues in the bodies which are dependent on sugar. But there's actually the backbone molecule of a fat molecule, which is glycerol, and glycerol can be converted via a process of gluconeogenesis into carbohydrates, into simple sugars. So we're gonna basically get our food, our sugar supply during that fasting period from the glycerol molecules, from the fat molecules that we are breaking down for energy otherwise in the process of, you know, creating ketone bodies, and also beta oxidation, I think it's called. So really there's anything you need in the fats, okay? But I'm not gonna lie to you, if you're getting into fasting mode and complete fasting mode, you're also gonna break down a little bit of muscle all the time, you know, especially the longer the fast lasts and the tinier your fat stores get compared to your muscle stores, the more your body is also gonna crank up a little bit of that muscle burning, because before you're gonna die, you're also gonna burn a little bit of muscle, you know. But fasting is considered by the experts as the, let's say, most muscle sparing form of weight loss. And the same is true when we talk about the second biggest concern when it comes to fear of fasting. Will fasting cause metabolic damage? For the same reason, fasting will not cause metabolic damage. It is actually the only way to grant your body full access to your fat reserves, and it's gonna use it full force. Okay, it's gonna crank up that adrenaline a little bit to keep you looking for food, and it actually won't slow down your metabolism, because you have access to all that fat. I made a video about metabolic damage in the connection with fasting and how metabolic damage is actually caused by a very high frequency at a caloric deficit. Why is that happening? Because when we eat at a very high eating frequency, our insulin is high all the time, but you're at a caloric deficit, so your body's got to make up that caloric deficit somehow, and since it has not access to that fat, to that body fat, because the insulin is high all the time, it's gonna start breaking down muscle, and it's also gonna reduce your absolute need for energy by dropping your metabolic rate, your basal metabolic rate, your BMR, okay? So actually what's causing a metabolic damage situation, so to say, is eating at a very high eating frequency at a caloric deficit. Now when we're fasting, we are at a super huge caloric deficit, but we're not eating at all. Our insulin is rock bottom. Body has full access to the fat stores, and therefore there's no need to reduce its metabolism. Okay, it actually cranks up your metabolism a little bit because it wants you to look for food, and it does that via you know, these adrenaline hormones and stuff like that. Will fasting cause eating disorders? The third most concerned topic when it comes to fear of fasting. No, fasting is actually the complete absence of an eating disorder, I would say. As far as this is just my personal opinion now, okay, so don't take that for granted, but the way I see it is an eating disorder can either be eating chronically, eating too little chronically, which could then be termed as anorexia, for example. And the other way around would be eating too much chronically with a very high eating frequency. You know, this classical food addiction that we know from very, very fat people. Okay, they are addicted to food, mostly addicted to carbohydrates, and they want to get that insulin spike all the time. You know, it gives them this instant high of having a higher blood sugar, higher insulin, and then they are looking for the next spike, you know. Fasting is actually one way to reintroduce contrast into your eating habits. Okay, so when you are eating too little all the time, constantly with a very high eating frequency, as I said, this is going to run you into an eating disorder, because your body is not naturally used to this kind of behavior. In the wild, your body would only be used to fasting or eating full force, okay? Because when there's food available, you want to actually stash up some resources, you know, to be able to sustain through the next fasting period. So in the wild, we have, just like most other animals, bigger animals at least, or actually when we talk about it honestly, we gotta say like most carnivorous animals, we have a very contrasty eating habit. Okay, we would go hunting probably twice, 3 times, 4 times a week or something, and we want to stash in the calories, and then we would have periods of fasting again. Okay, that's why we have a sack, you know, we have that sack stomach which can fit a lot of food in a very short period of time. Got that high powerful stomach acid, that very low pH stomach acid that's gonna dissolve all that stuff, dissolve all the bad bacteria and stuff like that in that food. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. The main point here is you want to have your eating frequency on point. Eating frequency is what determines an eating disorder, okay? And fasting reintroduces contrast into your eating habits by giving you no food, okay? It's giving you the opposite side of the spectrum. And then once you're eating again, you want to have the other opposite side of that eating spectrum, okay? You want to eat a proper meal. And this is, by the way, the reason why fasting cures veganism so often, because once they fast and reintroduce contrast into their eating habits, people realize that they actually have been fasting all the time by doing the vegan diet, because the vegan diet is actually a type of fasting, and this is also why it was invented by certain monks in the Far East and stuff, who were in their monasteries and, you know, meditating all the time. The vegan diet is something that promotes that a lot, you know, that spiritualism, because you're actually always in that bit of a fasting state. You're consuming your own body to some degree, and that's the aspect of veganism, okay? Once you really fast 100%, no calories, you're gonna realize that once you eat, you wanna have proper food again. So fasting reintroduces contrast into your eating habits, okay? That's why, in my opinion, fasting has nothing to do with an eating disorder. It's actually probably a very good way to heal eating disorders, most eating disorders of the modern day at least. So why do you want to fast? Second big point of this video, what's your motivation? The first big point here is health benefits, and I'm gonna simply read from the things that I've written down here. What are the supposed health benefits, the general health benefits of fasting? We've got increases insulin sensitivity, increases digestive efficiency, it resets your palate, you know, your palatability, your feeling for taste. It reduces inflammation, cranks up your autophagy. There was actually done very recently. There was done some research on autophagy. I'm sure you can Google that, autophagy and fasting and stuff. How it works with very low insulin levels, and your body is starting to basically recycle old cells, you know, out of your tissues. And it's gonna recycle cancer cells. It's gonna basically eat them up. Okay, your immune system starts to really crank up that eating up signaling, okay, and your immune system go for search, you know, for weak cells in your body, and gonna eradicate them very efficiently, because it can use these nutrients to fuel the body, okay, during a fasting period, which would not happen otherwise if you're stuffing your face with food all the time, okay. So we got autophagy. Obviously, one very obvious thing with fasting is weight loss. When you have unhealthy amount of fat on your body, fasting, as I've said before, is probably the most muscle sparing and also the, in general, healthiest way to get rid of that fat, combined with you know, proper exercising and all that kind of stuff, of course. Now, we also get a growth hormone and testosterone boost after the fast is ended, okay, when we actually come back. Now, the reason for this is, again, your body wants to come back very quickly once it gets these natural resources back, you know. It wants to come back, bounce back, be at full energy again to sustain the next fasting period, you know. Maybe have a little bit of a phase of reproduction and stuff, you know, and other fun little things before the next fasting period comes, you know. It's like you have to think of it like a grizzly bear. When a grizzly bear enters hibernation, and it's got 6 months of dry fasting basically in front of it, in its little cave, in its warm little cave, you know, just converting fat into energy and water and living just off that for 6 months, you know, half a year. Do you think he's gonna burn muscle in that period? No, it's gonna live off that fat. And once he comes out of that cave and eats the first meal, he wants to bounce back super quickly, okay, to be ready for those fights, you know, when they fight for women and for the females and all that kind of stuff. So really think of it as this grizzly bear. The absolute extreme case is the grizzly bear here, really. So there's also one special point that I've written down here when it comes to improving your health. I think we're gonna let this quad driver here pass. There's also one special point when it comes to general health, and that is gut health. A lot of people, fasting for a lot of people the motivation, the primary motivation, is actually gut health. And I also have to say something about that. I didn't fast for gut health. My main motivation was a performance increase in climbing, and also the general health aspects, and also the challenge, to be honest. I wanted to see what my body is capable of. But I followed a couple of people who fasted for gut health because they wanted to improve their gut health, basically, and it seems to be the case that fasting works quite good against any sort of physical damage to the gut, you know. For example, if you have an ulcer, I don't know how to really pronounce that, in your stomach, fasting can help you with that. If you have some sort of leaky gut or something like that, you know, physical damage, physical ruptures in your gut lining, fasting obviously can help you with that, because it simply removes the stress of food. The same goes for the ulcers, you know. When you remove the stress of food on your digestive tract, it actually gets a chance to heal up, you know. And this is of course something that happens all the time. Your gut is trying to regenerate itself all the time, but most of the time you're disrupting it with eating, and especially eating at a very high eating frequency, because your body is not used to have food in there all the time, you know, going through all the time. Reduce your eating frequency, crank up that fasting time, and give your gut basically a chance to heal. This is the aspect that fasting has, I think, on the physical properties of your gut basically. Also, when it comes to hemorrhoids, some people seem to have cured hemorrhoids with fasting, because, you know, it might sound stupid, but your body is not used to shit 3 times a day, okay? It can't do that. Fasting actually gives you a chance to reduce also your shitting frequency, and thereby helps healing these areas of the body which are stressed in this case, okay? Some people also tried fasting to get a more preferable state of gut microbiome. And I have to say a point here about that. There's people who fasted like 35 days on water or something, and as soon as they started eating again, their digestive problems from gut dysbiosis came back. So I personally think that fasting is not a good way to or if you want to, unless it's about worms and parasites and stuff like that, who simply die off if you fast long enough. But you have to know that these creatures are really, really resilient. And there's people who dry fasted for days, okay, for 7 days, and nothing came out of them. And once they ate anti-worm medication, they shed out worms, okay? So these worms actually survive prolonged periods of time of dry fasting, actually, sometimes more, sometimes less. You know, there's also people who shed out worms after like a week of dry fasting or so, but a week of dry fasting is pretty advanced stuff. So if you're expecting to heal gut dysbiosis, and especially when it comes to these bacterial things, okay, if you have an unbeneficial strain of bacteria in your gut and that's ruining your digestion a little bit, don't expect fasting to cure that, because these are actually very able to survive in biofilms and, you know, lay dormant and wait until the next meal. These organisms are very resilient, and I think the thing that mostly influences your gut microbiome is actually what you eat when you eat, rather than how long you fast, okay? What you eat is actually going to determine what kind of strains of bacteria you have in your gut, and also, you know, the probiotics. You know, any food is a probiotic, okay? Because unless you cook it to death completely, we have bacteria all around us. Bacteria are on grass, they are on fruit, they are on meat. And you know, what your body does with them and how it cultivates them to further your digestion, it of course depends majorly on what you eat when you eat, and not so much on how long you fast or how you fast when you fast and stuff like that. So that's my personal opinion on that. Another thing that comes with fasting very often is skin health. This can be a byproduct. I personally think that if you have a lot of skin problems on your surface, which you can see, of course, then in fact an underlying cause of that could be some inflammation in the gut or some gut problems. I think that every surface on the skin has its little counterpart in the digestive system, which is also nothing else than skin. Okay, it's skin, but only pointed towards the insides. So if you have problems on your digestion, skin problems on the inside, it's gonna be reflected on the outside by some sort of rash or whatnot, what else there can be. So if you removing the digestive stress from your gut lining, you also remove a lot of stress on your outer skin, and thereby a lot of the times, a lot of people have experienced this, that skin cleared up through fasting. So these are essentially all the health benefits that I could think of. We only touched very shortly on a couple of very important ones, which is autophagy, reducing inflammation, resetting your palatability, increasing insulin sensitivity, which can be a big thing for diabetics. Although we have to specify here, we have to differentiate between type 2 and type 1, because type 1 would actually need a bit of a, it's not so easy for type 1s to fast. For type 2s it's easier, but you have to monitor your blood sugar and stuff like that. So fasting for health, that topic we got. You could also fast for performance increase if you excel in a weight dependent sport. As a lot of you know, I'm a rock climber, and obviously if you're having a lot of weight on your fingertips to carry up that rock wall, if you're lighter, that's gonna make a huge difference. So rock climbing is definitely a weight dependent sport, but there are also others like calisthenics, I think certain sports like dancing, and all this groundwork like flick flags and tricking and stuff like that. It simply is gonna help you a lot to also a lot of martial arts, basically, to get into a lower weight category and stuff like that. A lot of sports are actually weight dependent, and especially when they are done at a very high level. So fasting could really be a powerful weapon if you can do it in a kind of healthy way, that could further your performance in these cases. And as you know, as I shared with the Mission 8B, I've done this during the Mission 8B to climb my first 8B boulder. It worked tremendously. In the meantime, I did it also a lot of times with hard outdoor rope projects that I had. Also for this recent 8C, did a little bit of a 72-hour water fast, before that. Then got some food back in, then you get this growth hormone and testosterone boost. You come back really quickly. The next day you're out on the rock and crushing it. This is something I like a lot about fasting. It helps you. It is so effective in the short term. It really helps you to get into performance mode really quickly, and you do not have to be this emaciated looking rock climber, all the time. Basically, you can actually eat on days where you're training, where you don't have to perform. For most people, if they do a sport at a very high level, it's not gonna be 100% full performance all the time. You're gonna have periods where you want to perform, and then you want to have periods where you recover, where you're just training, you're just building some strength, and you want to eat there. You want to basically, you don't want to fast, you don't want to look emaciated and have your body in this kind of catabolic state all the time. You want to be anabolic. Now fasting is very effective, because as soon as this short period of performance comes, you simply throw in a fast before that, get your refeed in, and then crush it, and you may be 3-4 kilograms lighter than before, depending on which method you used and how long you went, and just works amazingly. So one aspect could be performance increase on weight dependent sports, and another aspect, which is often overlooked in my opinion, is just for the challenge. Okay, you also could fast just for the challenge. Most people are in fact addicted to food without even realizing it. Okay, if you're eating like 6 meals a day from morning to evening, I can almost guarantee you have some sort of food addiction. Most people are addicted to sugar. I'm addicted to carbohydrates, because those give this short spike of energy which fades very quickly. Okay, so it's really like a drug. It is a nutrient and you need it for energy, and carbohydrates are especially important for that quick explosive energy, as I've talked about previously countless times. I think carbohydrates are still important. However, if you're eating them all the time at a very high frequency, you can get addicted to this feeling of a high blood sugar very easily. Now, for some people it can be a real challenge to get rid of that food addiction, and this can be achieved by fasting. Okay, fasting, especially if you're getting into that fasting forced ketosis for the first time, you should feel a lot better instantly, and you should actually not experience a lot of hunger anymore. So just about that, I just don't want to get off track here. So you could use it as a challenge to overcome food addictions, or you simply could use it as a challenge to learn what your body is actually capable of. I mean, it's common knowledge you can't survive longer than 2 days without water. If you don't drink water for 2 days, you're gonna die, basically. A lot of people believe that, actually, and a lot of people drink a shitload of water, much too much water, in my opinion, in my experience now, I can say, because I also did dry fasting experiments, as you know. I have documented these on this channel. A person like me, okay, not fat at all, pretty much below 10% body fat all the time, can dry fast easily for a week, I would say. I haven't done it so far because I don't think it's a super healthy practice to do this very frequently. You could do it for once for the challenge again, but I could, okay? Just in the same way I could go without food probably for a month, okay, before I would die or had any severe, health consequences from that. There's a guy on YouTube as well, Tim Sheath, who just did a 35-day water fast, and this guy was not fat before that. Okay, your body knows very well how to handle these periods of starvation, so to say, of controlled voluntary starvation. It just works. Okay, it just works. So the body is capable of much more than what you would think, and this is something that fasting teaches you very amazingly, in my opinion. So it's time to move on to the last point of this video, really, which is, how do you start? How do you get your first fast done, to get some experience, to get rid of that fear of fasting? And in my opinion, to keep it simple, you simply start with a 48-hour water fast. So you basically fast for 2 days. The reason why this duration is so significant, I would say, is because by far the majority of the people are going to get into fasting forced ketosis after 40 hours of water fasting, okay, of consequent strict water fasting. No calories, no artificial sweeteners, because artificial sweeteners are going to cause a slight insulin response in your body, because your body believes on your tongue that some carbs are coming down here and then they don't come, so it raises your insulin a little bit, okay, and kicks you a little bit out of that fasting mode. So if you're really strict with it and you're consuming only water, you should get into fasting forced ketosis in 48 hours of water fasting. Unless you're super diabetic and, I don't know, you have countless little sugar storages, carbohydrate storages in your body that couldn't get into your cells because you don't have this insulin sensitivity anymore. You're insulin resistant. Your body stores carbohydrates everywhere, which is also the problem, with diabetics in general. That's why they get all these infections, because they are not metabolizing that sugar in their cells, okay? Because they literally can't get the sugar in their cells anymore because they are so insulin resistant. So if you have a bunch of sugar stored in your body, in tiny spots in your body, because you're super diabetic, it might take a long time to get you into fasting forced ketosis, because your body needs to use up all that sugar first. But in 48 hours you should get into fasting forced ketosis. Now you can actually track your ketosis with something that's called keto sticks. I actually have some around here to show them to you. I think this is actually quite a practical tool. Oh man, you should have done this before you started the actual video. Okay, you can get these off Amazon. You simply piss onto these keto sticks, and they have kind of a color reaction to your piss and can pick up ketones in your urine. Your body your kidneys are not very efficient in reabsorbing ketones, especially if you're new to ketosis in general. So you're gonna piss them out and you're gonna see them on the keto sticks. So you know, basically with an accuracy of up to an hour or something like that, the time point when you switched into ketosis. And that's when you know, okay, you're in fasting forced ketosis. This is how it feels to be in fasting forced ketosis. Nothing happens. I run pretty smoothly. Maybe I'm a little bit tired. I'm a little bit dizzy in the morning. But in general, I'm fine. And this is what you're gonna learn during your first 48-hour water fast. So this is how I would start, how I would recommend you to start. Finally, I want to say, yeah, get these keto sticks, get a good water source, okay, fast on a good water source, this 48-hour fast. Buy some mineral water, some good quality spring water, stuff like that, that has some minerals in it. If you want to go for a prolonged water fast, you should fast on water that has some sort of minerals in there, especially sodium and potassium. Sodium chloride and potassium chloride. The reason for this is that otherwise, if you're fasting on plain water, you're gonna piss out all your electrolytes with the time, and then you're gonna feel super dizzy and super tired after some time, and that's of course not good. You're gonna get very low blood pressure, and you don't want that, okay? So you're basically gonna consume something that is similar to an IV that they put in your veins in a hospital, basically. But that's very advanced stuff, okay? You only need that for very prolonged water fast. For your first 48-hour water fast, you just need a good quality water source and these keto sticks to actually track your ketosis. And that's basically it, okay? Then you can gather experience from there. Finally, I want to recommend a very good YouTube channel that I've been following since a couple of time now, actually, since a good amount of time, which is called Snake Diet. It's Cole Robinson's Snake Diet. Shout out to Cole Robinson. I don't do this very often, that I shout out YouTube channels, because honestly, I'm not a big shout outer. I'm hardly impressed by someone. But this guy, it's just awesome to watch him. You know, he does the self-experimentation. He shares his results. He helped a shit ton of people to lose weight, to get healthier, to get fitter, get in shape. And yeah, it's really inspiring to watch him. You know, he goes a lot against the mainstream, who says that fasting is bad for you. You know, you gotta understand that fasting is free. Fasting does not keep the ball rolling when it comes to economy, okay? When it comes to money, when it comes to the buck. Fasting is free. You don't need complicated devices or anything. You just need water. Sometimes you don't even need that when you go on a dry fast. So it's cheap. It's free. It's not very profitable from an economic standpoint, so you're not gonna see it being promoted by the mainstream, okay? This is something that you have to experience yourself. You're also not gonna see a lot of science about this topic either, because where are the controlled groups? You know, where is this population of 1,000 regularly fasting people out there that they could compare to the regular people, okay? You're not gonna see a lot of science about that. Despite that, there is something out there, some stuff you feel free to research that. And yeah, check out this YouTube channel, Snake Diet by Cole Robinson. Really like the guy, really outspoken, really, you know, he's not gonna be as kind to you as I am, because he likes to swear a lot, but yeah, you get used to it with time. Anyway, finally I want to say fasting is just one of these natural health tools where everything falls into place. It's just something that couldn't go unnoticed by the human species as a health tool, because it's just so effective. It has so many benefits, and probably the reason why that is the case is that we had to fast in the past, okay? During our hunter-gatherer times, when food was not always available, when we had incredibly high metabolisms, because we are living basically in the ice age, and your body had to generate heat, you know. Just upholding that heat would take a lot of calories. It would take a lot of very high metabolism and stuff like that, okay? So fasting, it was probably necessary for our body to at least to some extent adapt to the stimulus of fasting. And this is why to this date fasting probably works pretty well as a health tool, because your body kind of needs this opposite end of the spectrum from time to time. You know, this contrast in your eating habits, that's what I would call it. Anyway guys, thanks for watching this video. It was very we only scratched the surface of a very lot of topics. If you're interested in this more, you know, and want to have a detailed video to something that was mentioned during this video, I think I'm gonna do these in the future at some point when I'm motivated. You know, the passion for this topic comes and goes. Sometimes I want to do a video about it, sometimes I want to do more climbing specific content again. So let me know your feedback in the comments down below, would really appreciate it. And maybe you have already some experience with fasting, you can post that down below as well. Maybe someone else would like to learn from that as well. Drop some likes if you liked it, drop some dislikes if you don't, please. Everything helps a lot. And I'll see you soon in the next video guys, bye.